Sir, they have the right to know whose footsteps they are following, not to be honored myself. I am only here to remember the friends who never returned. On a chilly November morning, the air in Sacramento carries the scent of fallen leaves. An elderly man, his coat silvered by time, slowly steps out of his modest apartment, making his way toward the parade route. He carries no banner. He seeks no applause. Yet when Clarence Red Walker, 98 years old, sits quietly at the curb, 47 young Marines do something that leaves the crowd speechless. What did they see in that old man's eyes? If this story moves you, don't forget to hit like, subscribe to the channel, and let me know where you're watching from. It's always exciting to see our community tuning in from all around the world. The Marines advanced with near-perfect precision, their steps measured and in unison, their eyes fixed straight ahead, their faces bearing the discipline forged through countless hours on the drill field. Among them, a young corporal, his features still retaining the softness of youth, scanned the crowd lining the street. It was instinct, a trained reflex. Observe, but remain unfazed. But this time, his gaze halted. Amid the sea of onlookers, he saw a figure no classroom lesson could have prepared him for. An old man seated silently, without flag, without banner, without sign. Yet on that silvered coat lay something that made the young Marine's heart tighten. A slender silver ribbon, the silver star, symbol of supreme courage, of blood and fire, of deeds that shine brightest even when no one watches. Without a word, the corporal snapped to attention and saluted, a crisp, respectful motion. He did not break formation. He sought no spotlight. Yet that salute was a silent command, not for a superior commander, but for a fellow warrior, a living legacy. Those behind him began to see it, then the next, and the next. Like a silent wave, one by one they turned. One by one their arms rose in near-perfect unison. A collective salute, steady, powerful, not at the sound of a whistle, but to the beating of hearts stirred by profound respect. No one had to speak. No orders were given. Clarence Red Walker remained seated, his spine straightening instinctively. He witnessed each salute, each gaze, not from strangers, but from successors, the young men his comrades once protected. Something tightened in his chest, not pain, but something more sacred. His aged heart had never forgotten this feeling, to be recognized not by cheers, but by solemn silence. Each raised hand a promise, each look a bridge between past battlefields and the road ahead. The surrounding crowd gradually realized what was unfolding. The hush spread like a sacred signal. Hushed conversations halted. Children ceased their chatter. Parents turned to one another. They did not grasp every nuance, but they sensed something profound unfolding before them. A man leaned in. "They're saluting him!" A woman asked, "Who is he?" No one had the answer, but the emotion in Clarence's eyes conveyed the truth. This was no ordinary moment. A veteran standing nearby, eyeing the ribbons on Clarence's coat, shook his head softly. He whispered, "Silver Star, he's a legend." No one initiated any ceremony. No guidelines had called for this. Yet the Marine formation, with each step like a drum beat, had transformed that morning's parade into an unofficial rite, a tradition unrecorded in manuals, yet touching the very core of military heritage, honoring those who came before and survived to carry the memory of those who did not return. And Clarence, alone on his folding chair, amidst a sea of strangers, returned every salute with hands stiffened by arthritis, movements slow yet unwavering. precise, as if the years of war still lay coiled in every sinew. Amid the ever-moving crowd, a current flowed backward through time. No narration needed, no drum calls required. Just an old man and 47 young Marines, and one resounding truth, needing no spoken words. Small acts can stop a generation in its tracks and remind them why they march on. Clarence Red Walker remained seated, unmoving after that sacred moment of salute. He did not rush to move, partly because his aging body needed time to catch its breath, partly because his mind was still lingering on those salutes, each gaze, each arm raised in unison, each reverent expression that could not be feigned. This was not an invitation to honor him. It was a silent call from young Marines grateful to a predecessor. When the parade organizer approached, Clarence sensed a shift in the air. The man wore no uniform, yet each step he took bore the steadiness of a seasoned Marine. He stopped beside Clarence, his eyes level, not looking down, neither deferential nor commanding, simply present with deep respect. His voice was low and clear, measured with proper restraint as he said, "Sir, would you like to lead today's parade?" Clarence did not answer immediately. He simply gazed ahead, where the road still stretched out, and then shook his head. He did not come to be the focal point. He had lived long enough to know that some moments were not meant to be claimed. "I'm here only to remember," he replied softly, as though speaking more to himself than to the man before him. But in that instant, the young corporal, the one who first saluted Clarence, met his eyes once again. No words were exchanged, but that look posed a silent question. If not you, then who? It carried no ambition or awe. It was an invitation from the next generation to the living representative of bygone years. A single glance spoke louder than 1,000 words that some memories cannot remain hidden in the dark. Clarence understood. He needed no further evidence. He knew in his heart that this was no longer a personal matter. This was a moment in which the past needed to step into the light, so the new generation could see it, understand it, and carry it forward. He nodded. The corporal stepped forward swiftly. Without waiting for orders, 2 fellow Marines moved in to assist, not with haste or showmanship, but gently helping Clarence to his feet, as if rehearsed long ago. Their strong hands lifted him, not with pity, but as comrades guiding their own back to a place of honor. Clarence rose, his body trembled slightly. The legs that once traversed the jungles of Asia waded through mud and trenches and endured bone-chilling cold, now relied on 2 young Marines. Yet in that fragility, he radiated an indescribable strength. At first, the crowd did not notice. But as the veteran stepped forward, one hand lightly gripping the elbows of his young escorts, the whispers gradually subsided. Then came a smattering of applause, slow, tentative, then more, until it swept through them all. The applause rose like waves, not cheers, but empathy. Applause for those who lived a life without seeking credit, for the man who did not wish to be honored, yet now stood as the embodiment of thousands of unspoken names. Clarence did not smile. He simply took each short step, every motion anchoring his cane firmly, his eyes fixed straight ahead, not seeking the crowd, not searching any face. He walked for those who could no longer walk themselves. Behind him, the formation of 47 Marines subtly shifted, their footsteps aligned, their gazes solemn and respectful. No words spoken, no explanations given, only the undeniable truth. This man, Clarence Red Walker, led the way. and none were more deserving. No banners were needed, no cameras broadcast this moment. Yet with each passing second, Clarence walked as if leading not just a parade, but a procession of souls, those friends who fell, memories that were never spoken aloud. A day of remembrance had become a day of transition, and Clarence, the old Marine who never sought the spotlight, now moved forward, not only with his own steps, but carried by the will of a generation that lived and died in silence. Clarence Red Walker was walking amid the applause, amid the crowd's sacred hush, his feet, tested by nearly a century of life, hardened by trenches, frost, and fire, now bearing the weight of memory itself. He felt it more acutely with each passing minute. His body was no longer what it once was. Every additional step demanded a loan of his own will to stay upright. No one saw the tremor in his knees, but Clarence knew. His breathing grew uneven, his chest contracting in slow pulses, each inhale demanding considerable effort. He did not complain. He would not permit himself to stop. Not now, when behind him marched a formation of young Marines, bearing all the respect he had never sought. He had once led true combat marches, where ahead lay not applause, but artillery fire and peril. Yet something in this moment moved him more than any battlefield ever had. Perhaps because he was living the trust once placed in him. Perhaps because he was not alone. His body began to betray him. A slight falter sent the corporal at his side to tighten his grip on Clarence's arm. Without a word, Clarence knew they were watching. He caught the anxiety behind their eyes. Then came another heavy step. His chest burned with heat. He knew he could not continue without rest. Corporal Jalen Brooks did not wait for him to collapse. With the decisive demeanor of one trained for combat, he signaled to his comrades, then guided Clarence toward the vintage Jeep rolling alongside. The vehicle, once a fixture of many parades, held new meaning today, not mere display, but a bridge for Clarence to complete his journey. He did not wish to sit. His silent pride endured. Yet Clarence understood. Pride was not defiance of one's limits, but knowing when to proceed differently. They helped him into the Jeep with the utmost care, not lifting an old man, but carrying a commander to a place of honor. Seated, he caught his breath. The crowd's gaze remained fixed. No one understood fully what was happening. They only saw a venerable veteran leave the ranks and step into the Jeep. Soft whispers rippled. A wave of concern spread, and Clarence felt it. He felt compelled to speak, not in self-defense, but to reassure. Not for himself, but for all those looking to him with expectant eyes. He gripped the windshield frame, leaned forward slightly. His eyes swept the crowd, people who had come for a parade, now giving him their full attention. In that brief moment, he was once more a commander, not of a platoon, but of a story greater than himself. "My friends," he began, his voice not loud but commanding. "I am old, but I am still a Marine." He paused, his eyes shining, not from sunlight, but from the vivid life in each word he spoke. "And today, I witness what I have long hoped for: continuity, loyalty, esprit de corps passed not by order, but by respect." No more words were needed, each term carved by the years he had truly lived. In the crowd, some wiped their eyes, others nodded softly, and the Marines behind him, warriors in today's uniform, stood a little taller, their eyes never leaving his figure. Clarence said nothing further. He did not need to. In that moment, he fulfilled a final duty. He made others feel profoundly that the memory of war, of sacrifice, does not fade away, so long as someone carries it on. The Jeep began to move. Clarence sat steady, his hand resting lightly on the frame. His gaze fixed ahead, no longer that of a frail old veteran, but of one still leading, by spirit, by presence, and by the deep silence only those who have lived fully can pass on to those young souls just beginning their own journey. Dear viewers, please take a moment to relax or grab a glass of water, then listen on for the surprising developments ahead. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's always thrilling to see our community tuning in from around the globe. Comment 1 if you find this story moving, so we can continue bringing you more. The Jeep rolled slowly toward the city center. Clarence sat motionless, hands resting lightly on his knees, eyes fixed on the road ahead. He said nothing. The silence within him was not a sign of fatigue, but a preparation for something important he had carried in his heart throughout the journey. As the vehicle passed the Gold Star Memorial, where the names of the fallen are inscribed, Clarence raised his hand in signal. No explanation was needed. The corporal understood immediately. The Jeep halted. The formation behind slowed in unison. Clarence was guided down. 2 young hands gripped his arms as if escorting a father. Yet for Clarence, this was not a moment for support. He needed to take these steps himself. He knew this was the most crucial part of the day, and one he could not delegate. No background music, no host's voice, only Clarence's footsteps on the pavement and the crowd's eyes tracking each movement. He approached the polished black granite wall, its surface etched with hundreds of names, some he had known, some he once called out over a crackling radio with no reply, some he had written to families after draping the flag over a comrade's chest. Stopping before the wall, he did not bow, he did not whisper. He reached into his coat's inner pocket and withdrew a small object, the Bronze Star. Awarded for bravery during the siege in Korea through bone-chilling cold. It was more than metal. It was a part of his life. With hands stiffened by time, Clarence gently placed the medal at the foot of the wall. No display case, no ornate box, just a humble testament returned to its rightful place. Then he stood still, not turning back. No one needed to photograph him. Clarence had not come for recognition. He came to return something he had held too long. His face revealed no emotion, yet his eyes held an ocean of memories. Each name on the wall, whether he remembered or not, represented a piece of him, a part he spent a lifetime preserving, despite war and the erosion of time. Some in the crowd felt their throats tighten. They didn't know exactly what he was doing, but they sensed they were witnessing a deeply personal ritual. No one was invited, yet everyone was privileged to observe. Clarence spoke no words. None were needed. His gesture, placing his own heroism's medal before those who never came home, spoke volumes. No one should keep glory when their comrades could not share it. After a moment, he turned, his expression unchanged, but something in his gaze was unmistakable. Relief, as if a debt owed to the fallen had finally been paid, at the right place, at the right time. The young corporal stood ready, no questions, no urging. He simply stepped forward to escort Clarence back to the Jeep. But before moving on, Clarence glanced once more at the granite wall. He offered a slight nod, his final salute to the names he had carried in his heart for so long. That small act was captured on countless cameras and phones, yet no recording could fully convey its true meaning, because what Clarence performed was not for the lens. It was a ritual ode to those who gave everything, and today he fulfilled it, completely, humbly, with no need for acclaim. The Jeep moved on. Clarence sat quietly, hands on his lap, his gaze no longer tense. Perhaps in that moment, more than any in years, he felt a profound peace. Just hours after the parade, short video clips began appearing on social media. One of them, the footage of 47 young Marines saluting a 98-year-old veteran, garnered hundreds of thousands of shares overnight. No voiceover, no background music, only images, steps, and gazes. But it struck something very deep in viewers' hearts. People no longer saw Clarence merely as a veteran. He became an icon. Not because of the medals he had earned, not because of speeches he never prepared, but because of that very humility, that very silence, which awoke memory and gratitude in millions. The next morning, the city office phones rang off the hook. Schools called, veterans organizations called, press outlets called. They didn't want interviews or sensational headlines. They simply asked, "How can we find him?" In his modest apartment, Clarence sat in his familiar wooden chair, holding the first letter delivered. Childish scrawls, but clear enough for him to read. "Thank you for fighting so I could go to school safely." The second letter came from a newly discharged Marine. "I once thought what I did didn't matter. Then I saw you." The third, from a widow in Afghanistan. "The way you placed your medal helped me find the goodbye I couldn't speak." It didn't stop there. Schools began inviting Clarence to speak with students, not to recount war stories, but to share what allowed a man who survived 3 wars to retain gentleness in his eyes, steadiness in his posture. He did not agree at first. He was not a man of stages or podiums. But after the 200th letter, after seeing children standing beneath his apartment window with flags, Clarence understood. Some things cannot remain silent. And so he went. To one place after another, to one classroom after another, to small memorial services, sometimes only a few dozen people. Clarence carried no speech. He simply sat, recounted, softly, honestly, without embellishment, without flourish. Yet in doing so, he touched listeners' souls as if he were not telling a story, but returning a sacred memory. He spoke of what he had learned, that courage does not always come with gunfire, that loyalty sometimes endures in lifelong silence, and that, sometimes, the most important act is not the one in battle, but the way we walk afterward. Clarence did not change his way of life. The same old apartment, the same quiet mornings by the window. But now that apartment was no longer silent. Letters continued arriving daily. Young veterans came by. Children brought cookies, drawings, and questions with no easy answers. He became a keeper of memory, not like a museum, but like a small lamp, reminding everyone that some fires must be kept burning, not to illuminate the past, but to guide the present. No one in Sacramento ever imagined that a solitary old man sitting at the parade's edge could change how they viewed Veterans Day. Yet with a single salute, a slow step, and a medal placed on stone, Clarence did just that, not loudly, but forever. 6 months after Clarence placed his medal at the foot of the memorial, he passed away in his sleep. No sigh, no final farewell. Only one last breath drawn in silence, just as he had lived all those years, quietly, asking nothing for himself. News of his passing did not spread with the clamor of headlines. Rather, it flowed quietly among those who knew him, through a video, a speech, or a talk at which he'd appeared. No one was surprised, yet no one was prepared. His family was small. Most of his contemporaries had gone before him. But Clarence was not alone. For when word reached the Marine unit, the same 47 who had saluted him that day, a swift, unanimous decision was made. They themselves would carry Clarence's casket at his funeral. The ceremony took place at the National Cemetery, resting place of those who once donned the uniform with honor. Not a single seat remained empty. Not a single salute faltered. But what made that ceremony different was not the number of attendees, but what they carried with them. Each person came not only to bid Clarence farewell, but to close a chapter of memory he embodied. 47 Marines, in the very same number as on parade day, marched in step, their uniforms immaculate, their gazes straight ahead, each stride heavy with a sacred responsibility. They were not merely bearing a casket, they were lifting a portion of their corps' memory, a self-effacing symbol, yet quietly revered by the community. Clarence's flag-draped casket was brought to the chosen gravesite, each fold of the flag a reminder of the order he had always honored. No long speeches, only the funeral trumpet's tune, concise, profound, cutting through the air like a wordless goodbye. When all military rites were complete, the young Marines stepped back, leaving space before the headstone engraved with Clarence Red Walker. That was when a small boy, not more than 6 years old, tentatively stepped forward. No one knew where he came from. No one stopped him. For in that moment, the child was more than a mourner. He was the living proof of Clarence's belief that memory can be passed on if seen with the heart. The boy held a small paper flag, folded clumsily, yet with effort. He approached the headstone, hesitated a moment, then bent to place the flag beside the grave. No one instructed him. No one told him to act. Yet that simple, selfless gesture was exactly what Clarence had guarded his whole life. Respect born not of orders, but of feeling. No one spoke. No one needed to. Everyone stood still, as if the boy himself had delivered a lesson no lesson plan could teach. The language of silence, of reverence, shown through a small act. Corporal Jalen Brooks, the one who first saluted Clarence in Sacramento, stood quietly behind. He looked at the boy, then at the headstone, and nodded gently. He understood that the torch Clarence once held had been passed on, not by speeches, but through moments of quiet like this. Clarence's memory was not enshrined in a monument, not placed in a museum. It resided in the hands of those who had touched him, with a glance, an act, a silent belief. A soldier had gone, but he had not disappeared, for he left behind a path, not to be followed blindly, but to remind everyone that some journeys are continued not out of duty, but out of gratitude. And on that afternoon, in the peaceful cemetery, the clearest sound of all was this: that some people, though no longer living, still lead the way. Clarence was such a man. Clarence's story is not merely the celebration of one individual, it is a reminder of enduring values, selfless service, perseverance, and the admirable spirit of those who came before. In an era sometimes chasing empty glory, moments like these remind us that there are heroes who walk in silence, yet leave the deepest footprints in history. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to let us know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's always exciting to see viewers from around the world. Comment 1 if you found this story moving, so we can continue bringing you more powerful stories.